Last thing we're going to talk about is the braid. A braid is a little bit challenging because if the clay is dry, it cracks pretty easily, which can be frustrating. So I already have my 3 coils prepared. Notice they are significantly smaller than the coil that we used on the vessel, okay? Because we're obviously going to combine the 3 coils to make one braid. So if all the coils are this big, the braid will be gigantic, all right? So I already have them prepared. They're about the same length. They're about the same thickness. So to start, you're just going to kind of pinch the 3 ends together, okay? And then you're going to braid. So braiding clay, it's the same idea as braiding hair or braiding yarn, except you don't hold the clay in your fingers like you do when you're braiding. So you let it sit on the table. Here's the centerpiece. We're going to take an outside and we're just going to overlap the center, and now that piece has become the center. So you take the other outside piece and overlap the center. So you want to keep the braid fairly tight up here. When I say that, I mean, like, see this? How it's very loose and there's those big gaps in there? That's not going to work very well. Okay, so when we overlap those, we want it to be, you know, pretty close to the piece that's above it. My clay is very plastic. You want to make sure that you're not using dry clay because it will be more challenging. If your clay cracks or it breaks halfway through your braid, that's going to be frustrating. So when you do your braid, make sure that you're using plastic clay, probably something you got out of the bag that class period. Okay, don't try to use something that's a couple days old. Okay, so I'm just the outside overlapping the center. Okay, and here's my braid. I'm just going to kind of gently sort of push those together. All right. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. Make sure those individual coils are cleaned up before you braid them together. And now I have some options of what I can do with this. All right. See how I have this ugly end right here? You can leave that ugly end on, but then what I would do is score and slip it behind here and only let the pretty part of the braid show. Or you could just cut that off, score this end, score this, and just have those two meet up to each other. Okay, and you are going to, I'm going to cut this end a little bit too. Okay, and you would score and slip that just like anything else. You're just going to be scoring the bottom here. And the ends. And where it's going to touch over here and over here. It's pretty short, so I'm not going to score all the way up. Score your base. Apply your slip and stick that on. Now, all of these decorative elements, you decide which ones you want to use, which ones you don't like the way they look, or you don't think you're going to want to make that, how many of them you want to use. But just remember, as you're creating your design, we want your design to be unified. And repetition helps to create unity. So if you repeat something, you use a braid at the bottom, and then you use a braid somewhere at the top, that's going to help to create a unified design. Okay, gently wiggle. Now this design, it has not been planned at all. So as I've said before, that's all I'm doing here is just showing you how to make these things. This is not really a cohesive design. It's kind of a funky design, but not anything that I thought out or planned.